No, what's good?
I'm good.
How you been?
I've been good. I've been watching a lot of TV. I'm outside again.
You're
but
outside.
Yeah. Yeah. So like my first love, which is TV,
Uh-huh.
I had to take a little break because
Okay.
outside is open
You was
again.
doing
But
too much TV over the last year. That's
I
what it was.
I
Yeah.
was doing a lot of television.
So I'm not a TV or film guy at all.
And I'm trying to get you into
You really are. You've been pushing me to HBO
HBO
heavily.
Max is my shit. Don't fast forward or rewind.
No,
Because like
it's
your
not
shit will
happening.
freeze up. The app is like trash. I'm gonna say this because I really want them to fix it because it's like
Y'all listening to HBO.
They have great programming, like they really, really do. But the app itself, and I'm not speaking only for myself.
Okay,
there's a lot of people that can attest.
Got it. It's like a whole set of people just like, yo,
a lot of us on Twitter have complained.
Got it.
But the programming, the content,
it's top notch.
I
got to get into it. I mean, I watch a little few series here and there, you know what I'm saying? Like kind of whatever my wife Tia's into, then, you know, I might watch some stuff, you know? Yeah, but that's kind of my extent of it. And I mean, honestly, that's kind of like a quality time thing too, right?
Right.
So it's the way I do it.
Her Tia got you into Insecure.
Little something. She been watching that from day one.
Yeah.
So like, I'm like, who's this Issa Rae? Who's that? And so she, you know, she kept me updated throughout the whole thing. And I mean, for us, I think we've touched upon actors and actresses, right? But it's a little different speaking to the other side.
Right. I went to Sundance and I was hired by HBO to
why you over here talking bad about the app and they giving you checks?
Because I
don't
love
stop
them.
the bag.
I'm a tough love kind of girl.
Okay. Just fix the app, y'all.
If I love you, I'm gonna tell you the truth.
Tell them how it is.
I love HBO. I love the HBO team, their marketing team. They
fix the app. That's the IT team. That's not everybody.
It's not everybody. It's the IT team. Just fix it. Fix it a little bit.
Calling out one department.
Just IT. I love y'all.
Don't hack me, y'all. Don't email me crazy stuff.
I love y'all, but you know, I just want us to be better.
Yeah.
I just want us to be better. But HBO has hired me several times, several different occasions to DJ their events, and they hired me in 2020 last year.
Just by the way, I like when I see corporate checks like that. That's like cool.
They're amazing. They're beautiful,
and it's real. It's sure. It's on time.
It's on time. Sometimes early.
Yes, it's like, not next Wednesday because the thing was today. But nah, yeah,
it's always a beautiful thing.
Yes.
January of last year, was given the amazing opportunity to DJ for the HBO pop-up at Sundance Film Festival.
Snuck that in right before the pandemic.
Right before the pandemic, I was blessed to sneak that in before I had to go inside forever
and watch all day programming.
So while I was there, I'm like, okay, they're premiering the house that we were in, the showcase place that we were in was premiering mostly the Black and LGBTQ programming.
Okay.
So I was able to DJ their brunch that they had. Carrie Washington was there.
That's when you met Carrie?
That's when I met Carrie.
When Dope met Pope?
When Dope met Pope.
Yo, that was a moment. I think everybody was like, yo, it's happening. It's happening.
My little Twitter feed, my little the Carrie fan page reposted it. So it was mad cute.
I heard Carrie and I paused right there.
Right.
But let's keep.
So I'm there and I'm just like, you know what? As a TV and film buff, I mean, I can't DJ forever. And I've always loved TV and film. So they had workshops.
Okay. Good. So what you trying to get into that?
I want to dabble, but
I feel you.
I'm a Libra. So I just like learn. If anything else, I just want to know.
Yes.
I like to know the ins and outs of everything, especially if I'm a lover of TV. Why wouldn't I want to know the ins and outs of the shows that I love?
I know it's a Libra thing. That's a Virgo thing too. You just be doing a lot.
You know what it is? Because I'm a cusp on the Virgo side. That's what it is. It's not really a Libra. It's a Virgo thing.
We be in everything.
We
trying to figure out.
Yeah, boom, boom. I say we because I really relate. I want to know everything. So on my little breaks of doing like the DJ gigs for HBO, I saw that they were having a workshop, and Prentice Penny, the showrunner for Insecure,
Wow.
was one of the panelists.
And because you were the DJ, you able to just walk up in every spot like, hey, I'm here. Plus you're from Brooklyn, so we already know.
Devo, everything, you know what I'm saying? So I came in there, I introduced myself. Hey, I'm Olivia Doe. I'm the DJ for this, but I want to learn.
So what did he teach you in the workshop?
He pretty much let a lot of the other people that were there that were actually writers.
Wow.
And you know, burgeoning producers and directors that want to learn from people like him that are already established. What should they do in order to better the process of developing a short or film or a TV script? So they had space and opportunity to sit with him to a table and just ask him anything.
Yeah, and you just walked up in there.
And I walked up in there.
You got your workshop on.
Got my workshop
same thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Why not?
Wow.
It's free.
Yeah, and he's only running one of the dopest shows that's been on for the last how many years? What, 5 years now?
Right.
Yeah. Emmy nominated. Like big things are going.
Big things are going. Why not?
Wow.
So yeah, so that's when I met Prentice Penny.
Okay.
And now he's here.
That's it.
Sitting with us.
And we gotta love the connections, and that's how we make them. We make things happen, and then we bring them here. And I hope everybody gets to learn some things like you did in that workshop. Right. And we giving it to them. You don't even have to fly out to the workshop.
Didn't even have to fly out to Utah.
Oh, Utah. Oh, yeah.
Salt Lake City.
Oh, yeah. So y'all get to listen in today on Blue Dope.
Yeah.
For Prentice Penny.
For sure.
So let's get into it, y'all. It's Blue Dope.
This is Blue Dope. Welcome, everybody. Yes.
What's up, y'all?
We have Prentice Penny, writer, director, producer, TV, film maven on the rise. Like, listen, we're gonna get into it, but we all know Prentice from the showrunner of Insecure. He is the writer and director of Uncorked and executive producer of Pause with Sam J.
Yep.
Welcome, Prentice.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
I gotta start off by saying, man, I love the name. I think if I was a writer of film, that'd be my name too. But y'all had to call me like Prentice the Pen Penny. so what was that? Your birth name, or is that like kind of like an industry
name? No, that's my birth name. That was my dad's name, and I used to hate it growing up because as a kid, you just want to be like named Jeff or Chris or Eric, and you gotta like print it. What? Princess Pringles, what? It sucked growing up, brother. But as a creator, it just stands out because there's like not another person with the name. Right. So it served me well because some people don't know if I'm black, white, if I'm a man, I'm a woman. Like early on, people didn't really know. So it kind of was like you couldn't tell. Like if you got a script that said like Lamont Williams,
dead giveaway.
Right. I don't know if I'm gonna read this one, but Prentice Penny, what is this? But yeah, no. So I totally embrace it now. But as a kid, man, it was the worst.
We actually went to school. We went to Hofstra with Apprentice.
Oh, really?
Really?
Because he was on the football team.
Oh, so that's Prentice on the football team.
That's how I was already familiar.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, I know.
That's like the two Prentices out here.
That's it. That's all I know.
I know one other. Yeah, I knew one other Prentice who was a music video director. Okay. And so people would always think I was him and people would think he was me. So we kind of social media friends of like, yo, did you get called this today? I got called you today. So it's just kind of like, yeah, that's the only other Prentice I've ever met.
So you get the email. Can you do my video? Please, new single dropping. But yo, I had to ask even like, so I read, are you originally from Compton? Like, where did you grow up?
So I grew up kind of both. I grew up mostly in an area called View Park, Lamar Park, Baldwin Hills area, Crenshaw area of LA. My family, my dad and my grandparents owned a furniture store in Compton. So on the weekends, I mean, that was my dad's full-time job was running the furniture store. So, but on the weekends, I had to go out there and work. So, Saturday and Sunday, I would be out in Compton working at my dad's furniture store. It's like a little mom and pop furniture store. So, yeah, so I kind of split my time, kind of both.
I mean, when you paint the picture of Compton, is it what everyone kind of hears? Like it's this rough, tough place? Because, being from Brooklyn, we get that same vibe wherever we go.
Right. You know what I mean? I think it's through the eyes of the beholder, right? Like, of course that stuff was happening, right? Like, I mean, you know, I was growing up there in the late 70s, early 80s. So it was definitely in the heyday of the gang, you know, colors and the Boys in the Hood time for sure. But where we were, it was also like the other side of that, which is like Friday, right? Which is like you see the hood through other people's lens, because that's not just the only people who live there, right? So if you're doing Boys in the Hood, it's like, well, that's the lens you're looking at the hood through, which is the gang look, right? But if you were to, in Friday, you're looking at through a guy who just like Craig, who just lives in the community, dad's post office work. I mean, all those things. So yes, that existed, but at the furniture store, we got like next to the Asian wig shop. And it was next to like one of our, like my dad's furniture delivery dude was like in a black motorcycle gang. So called the Brothers of the Sun. So I just remember being on the back of his motorcycle when his, you know, and like going on deliveries, and it'd be like all these like momotorcycles like trailing to make sure nobody like took our furniture. You know what I mean? So like, but just as easy as like getting the hamburgers.
Yeah,
what's that?
Like some Real Sons of Anarchy stuff going on.
It was. And I would just sit on the back of the motorcycle as like a 5-year-old kid, you know, back then, no helmets. You know what I mean? So like, it was what it was, you know what I mean? But so like, I saw all the fun of that too. You know what I mean? So.
So I mean, clearly you didn't stay in the furniture space like that.
Right.
No. That's kind of what Uncorked was about. It was kind of taking what my family life was like, where my grandfather started the store. My dad took it over when my grandfather had a stroke, and I was the only boy, so I was next in line to do it. I didn't really want to do it. And so in Uncorked, I just kind of changed the business, you know, made it about barbecue and wine. And I knew in the movie, I wanted the son, I knew I didn't want the son to be a writer. That's like a boring thing on film. And so I made him be into wine and stuff. Just, I knew I wanted it to be something creative and kind of like, not, you wouldn't think black people go into, but we do. So instead of making it be a writer, I made it be about that. And instead of being a furniture store, I made it be about barbecue. And that's sort of how that movie came to be.
I like that. And I think I tweeted you around the time that the movie came out. And it's just a really great coming of age story. And now that you tell the backstory of it, where it's loosely based off of your experience, your life, it just makes all the sense, because we are just so used to seeing, okay, well, this person goes to college and gets a job. But no, this is more so, hey, we're not monolithic as Black.
Absolutely. And it was also like, I couldn't agree more. And it was also like, I didn't want the like specter of like white dominance hanging over the movie. Like, we live our lives as Black people with like in a myriad of ways that have nothing to do with how white people will affect our day. You know what I mean? So like, I didn't want any of that. I didn't want him to do something that was like basketball, like all the things they expect of us. Not that we don't do those things, but we do a gang of stuff. You know what I mean? And so I also felt like white people get to do these sort of like slice of life, Manchester by the Sea or Good Will Hunting. And all of our sort of Black father-son stories are birthed out of like the trauma from you're not around, and that's why we have an issue. And that wasn't me and my dad's issue. My issue was sometimes he was too much around in my life and trying to have too much influence in my life. But you never see that for Black fathers in movies. It's always typically the Black dad ain't around, and that's why there's an issue, and that's why the problem. And I just was like, that's not my life. It's not a lot of my friends' lives. Black fathers are traditionally, even if they're not with the person, they're more heavily involved than any other race around in their kids' lives. So, but that just doesn't get portrayed. It's always like we're never around. And so I didn't want that to be the story I was telling.
And I mean, I think that's dope too, because I obviously you're from an area, right? Just whether you're circulating through Compton throughout the days, etc. There's a lot of people that don't necessarily deem these areas as places where family life really existed.
Right.
Yep.
So very unexpected. I mean, outside of that, though, I did want to ask. I mean, even being from California, like folks like E40, you hear that, hey, you know, he was so close to wine country that he wanted to dip into that. So with the whole idea of being a sommelier in the movie, what did California have any type of that influence on you as well? And are you personally now a wine connoisseur?
It had zero to do with BBC.
I went too deep.
Well, the quick story about how it happened was why I picked that is I knew I was trying to find something that, like, again, felt elevated. It felt something the father kind of couldn't wrap his head around. That felt, and that's what it was like when I was telling my dad I wanted to go to film school. It was like there weren't no Black. It was like Spike Lee was the only one. But I lived in LA and I didn't know anybody that worked in the business. So it wasn't even like I lived in Kentucky, and it's just like I lived in a place where they make it, and I didn't know anybody, right? So, so the short version is that I didn't drink wine. The most wine I ever drank was like White Zinfandel at the Essence Fest, listening to Frankie Beverly and Maze. You know what I'm saying? Like that was my wine with some Behringer White Zinfandel. You know what I mean? I was not drinking wine at all because you just feel stupid. Like I'm like, I don't know if this is good wine. How do I know? Like I know Hennessy XO is good. I don't know if the Chateau so and so is. Yeah. Like I don't know that stuff. And what happened was I went to Paris. I had never been to Europe. I went for a wedding, and I was like, look, if I don't like wine in Paris, I ain't just gonna like wine. You know, it's like if you go to New Orleans and you don't like gumbo, you just don't mess with gumbo. That's just not what you're gonna do. And I took this wine class, like a wine, like intro to wine, like you went to a wine bar and the guy just like talked about wine in a very basic way. And I understood it. It made sense what it all meant. And I just got really into it that whole trip. And I wanted to just watch a bunch of stuff about wine just to soak it up. And I saw this documentary called Somm, and I was like, what's this? And then there's a whole documentary about people trying to be like a sommelier exam. It's like a hoop dreams for like being a wine somm. And you're like following these 4 people. And one of them happened to be a brother. And I was like, yo, that's dope. That's maybe what the guy should be doing in my movie. And that's really how it started. So now I drink a lot of wine. But at the time, I knew nothing about wine.
No, I mean, I definitely want to take it back because you mentioned that, for instance, when you first had that conversation with your father about wanting to be a producer, he's just like, what do you mean? But so let's go a little bit before that, like going into school and everything and growing up. I mean, did you ever try to start studying film and videography at that point? When did you actually kind of pick up that passion?
I think I always liked watching television for sure as a kid. And I think I always, my dad was a really funny story. Like all my dad's side of the family is the funniest people I've ever met. And he was always a great storyteller. So I think I was just picking up like how to tell stories, what was funny, what wasn't, learning about timing, like why, you know what I mean? And I wasn't thinking about it. It was just, like if your parents cook and they're great chefs, you'll pick up cooking, right? So I was just around that energy. And I think and I was the only child. So like entertaining myself was like a thing I had to, because I had, like grandparents today be like hella active. They'd be out there. My grandparents were old school, like 3 o'clock to 7 o'clock. We were watching the news. We were watching like Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, so it was old school. Like we ain't going out the house. We're not doing nothing, grandparents. Like we're not playing with you. We just gonna sit here and watch this TV. Right. And so, you know what I'm saying? Old school. Just like now, like my mom, she'll like pick the kids up. They'll go hiking. They'll like, I'm trying to imagine my grandparents hiking back in like 1984. They were like hiking. So that was sort of always kind of, I started entertaining myself. I'd write these little stories. And then it really wasn't until Spike Lee kind of hit on She's Gotta Have It in School Days that I was like, in every movie, he'd write a book, which was almost like a diary. He kept a diary almost of like what it was like to write the movie, make the movie. And in the book, it would be like the script, it would be pictures from the set. It would be like how he came up with this and like why he wrote the scene this way. It was really like just his, again, like a diary of making the movie. Yeah. And I would just read those. And that's when I started to learn of like, I didn't know you went to film school. I didn't know there was a film school. I thought you just went to college and like majored in English or something. I didn't know. But then he would talk about going to NYU Film School. He talked about USC Film School. So I was just like, what? There's a school that like just teaches you this. And so that was around high school time. And so that's when I first heard of film school. And it was off of that made me go like, oh, I need to investigate this. And so I ended up going to film school at USC.
I mean, shouts to Spike Lee. I mean, I guess he's clearly probably one of your big influences out there that do this.
For sure.
Is there a favorite Spike Lee movie? What is your favorite Spike Lee movie?
Ooh, I think Do the Right Thing is like, I would say, I mean, Malcolm X is its own, like.
That's its own.
Like
you can't
its own, like, yeah, like thing of storytelling that's like, so I don't even put that in like, it's so amazing. But I would say Do the Right Thing to me is like my favorite Spike movie. I can watch it anytime. Like when you think like that movie was his third movie, we're like, that's his third movie. So if you think about like Jay-Z's third album, if you think about like, and Spike was like 27, 28. He was so young. I mean, maybe he was 30, but you're like, that's the filmmaking of somebody who's like 30 years old. Like that's amazing. So so that would be my favorite. I could watch that anytime.
Mine is School Days. I watched it the other
School Days is great too.
That's the That's the only movie that I like the musical components, because it wasn't too much. It wasn't too extra, but it was just enough.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. And just to like break the fourth wall and have musical numbers in a thing that was just like, why is it doesn't that we don't normally get to do, right? That's what I always love about his filmmaking. He was doing things that weren't so like linear. We have to do it this way. He was kind of breaking the mold. Yeah, he was going into some very, he would do the right thing when people would talk to the camera, when every race was talking about the other race, and he's doing these sort of camera moves. And even reading his book, he was talking about he's super influenced by Scorsese and all these other directors, from New York. So you can feel it in his work, right? You can feel like what he's doing and the way he'd do angles and the way he would set scenes was really like in 89 and 88. You're just like, who's doing this?
Something special. It's something special. So speaking of, I guess, different scenes and how you set scenes and in cooperation with the writing and the filming with Insecure, I noticed that, especially in the last season, the cinematography, the certain shots, the certain locations that were picked for certain scenes. I can definitely think of, I guess, when Issa and Lawrence went on their date, there were certain color aspects incorporated that made it a little bit different from the other seasons. Were there extra attention to detail put into that? Like, what was that process like?
Yeah, I think every year, and shout out to Ava Burkowski, who's like our DP, and Melina, obviously, who directed our pilot and so many episodes of our show. Is the one thing we've always tried to do is like, how do we push the cinematography? How do we push the look in our show, right? How do we get better? What's working? What feels old? What can we do to infuse it new? And Ava's such a great like leader in that area. But I also think one thing that happened, at least for me, from the writing perspective, was before I did Uncorked, when you're doing a television show, you always have to be honest to like the episode before and after, right? So you can't go like too far off the reservation because you're like, well, I don't know what's came before me. So like my episode gonna be so crazy and I have to like respect there's an episode after me. So I can't go like so left that you're just like, wait, what was this episode about? That's crazy. Unless that's the intention, right? But when you make a movie, unless you're, again, barring that you're not making a sequel, you're making an original movie that hasn't existed before, it's a singular art piece. There's no sound, there's no movie before or after. You're not thinking about, oh, the characters are gonna continue. You're just like, I get to like make the shots and the whole look and the tone be whatever I need it to be, and then that's it, right? So coming off of Uncorked, I really was trying to push visuals and style in a way that like I couldn't always do on our show because I have to always honor the spirit and the intention of what Insecure is. But coming back, I wanted to push it and go, how do we do that in our way we're telling our stories, right? So even if we can't do different types of looks, what can we do? And so one of those things was like, well, let's start shooting in silhouette, or let's start shooting things that like this. Like, let's start shooting, like, for example, like one of the best examples I could say is the Lawrence Issa Condola scene in the finale, where it kind of looked like it was cutting between the conversation of Lawrence telling Issa, I have a baby with Condola, and you're sort of watching him be kind of mean to Condola, but super apologetic to Issa, and you're kind of cutting, not knowing who's going to speak next. Originally, when we broke that scene, and in any other season, we would have broke that scene where we would have just said, Lawrence tells Issa, hey, I got to talk to you. We would cut to the flashback and see the whole Condola scene. And then we would cut back to Issa for the end to be like, whatever, it's too much. That would be like a very way we would probably have done that scene.
Like a basic way to.
Yeah. So coming off that though, off the movie, I was like, how do we make this scene feel more dynamic, right? What does it feel like? It feels like this guy's like balancing this conversation. And to Spike's credit, like I remember in Mo Better Blues, there's a moment where Denzel is like kissing Spike's sister and the other girl, and it looks like he's talking to both of the girls. And that was such a great device.
Yes.
Bringing it back to Spike. And I was like, that could be a really cool thing. And that and by the shot setup, you're expecting, like if you're over Lawrence's shoulder on this side, you saw he's just talking to Issa, so you're expecting the reaction to be Issa's, but what if the reaction is Condola, right? And you're kind of using that device. And it just made that scene, I think, so much more dynamic and so much more gut-wrenching because you're watching the drama, you're watching both sides of the drama at the same time. So you're like in Issa's anger, but you're also pissed off with the Condola thing. And so I think that was a way that we tried to take the way to elevate, to your point, Olivia, like elevate the visuals, elevate the style that season. And I think it's no surprise that like both of our DPs got nominated for Emmys that year. Our editor to the episode that you recommended for episode 8, she won an Emmy for the editing of that episode. So I think the testament that we got 8 Emmy noms off that season, I think speaks to, I mean, some racist shit that we should have been nominated, but certainly that I think it kind of became, you can't deny that this season is very solid in a way that was, yeah.
Right. And that's the thing. It was super, super undeniable that like, it was another level that was taken in terms of everything put into it, like the writing, the cinematography, the way the character development plays. So and
that was risky too, because I mean I remember when Issa and I first talked about, like we talked about, Issa had always wanted to do a season like 90s movies when like a character starts the movie and they freeze and their voiceover is like, I bet you're wondering how I got here, and then you like figure it out in the movie. And we were talking about that dynamic, and then I was like, I really love that. And I said, well, what if the first thing is like, Issa's like, I don't fuck with Molly. Like, ooh, what is that? And that was very scary because Issa Molly is the backbone of our show. And here we were kind of dismantling it. And it was very nerve-wracking in the room because we're like, are we toying with the formula of the show? But it also became very exciting because we were like pushing the show. We felt like we were, anytime we always felt in the room that the situation felt dangerous, we wanted to pursue that feeling. Right. That was a good feeling. And I think that was something we were really excited about season 4, was all the ways it felt very scary.
Hey.
Like, I mean, even in regards to just the writing perspective, right? How far in advance are you kind of thinking of the way this is going to pan out season by season? And I ask that also because there are many shows that we've seen that the first 2 seasons were awesome, and then by season 3, it kind of tapers off a little bit, but you have been able to captivate your audience throughout every season. So what is that writing process like, and how far in advance is it?
Sure. It's really season by season, to be honest. I mean, there's so much to think about that, like, if we don't always know, because you don't always know, like, how is this season going to feel, right? So you're kind of like, you'd be almost like pre-guessing ahead of time. You don't know what the actors can do. You don't know how that storyline is going to, is that anything that feels interesting? So one of the things that we would always do is sit at the beginning of every season and just talk about, is there a theme, an idea that we want to hit? So like season 2, it was like, now that I know better, I got to do better. That was like a big thing, right? Now that I'm not ignorant that I cheated on Lawrence at the end of season 1, so I can't pretend that like my actions don't have consequences. So that was a big thing for season 2, which is adulting, right? Taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back, but always moving forward, right? Like this season is, am I going to be okay, right? Am I going to be okay if this happens? Am I going to be okay if this doesn't happen? So, and we try to let the season see how that feels, and that will kind of tell us, we try to build on the next season. So from season 1, for example, Issa did these kind of actions, and she found herself dealing with the repercussions of that into season 2, right? So we said, okay, well, if a person went through this in real life, what would they take as the next thing they need to grow from, right? So we just always start there based on the last 2 seasons, what are they talking about now? So we're always like, just trying to build on the thing we just did, because that's how human growth is, right? We're always like, we go through something, we're like, okay, how do I get better? How do I improve? How do I change this and that? But I think to your point, the one key thing that I think we did was we took a pause between season 3 and 4, because we had been going and going and going. And I think to your point, where the show kind of sung for a while is because we got to bring all these other stories and not feel like we're just like always in a writer's room turning the show over. It felt like we got to pause, have other creative outlets. Like I got to go make my movie. Issa got to go make some movies. Melina got to go do Queen and Slam. So we were kind of got to like step away, have a breath, not be in the cycle of making shows, and just examining, well, what do we want to talk about now? How are we changed? What's our perspective now about the show? So that really helped. I think that, to your point, if we would have kept going, I think the show would have felt stale and getting old, because we were feeling that way towards the end of season 3 of like, we're just kind of like in this wheel but not saying like, what do we want to say? What do we want to talk about? Or are we having more life existence outside of the show that we can actually bring back? Because a lot of our show is like spending time with our friends and like spending time with our families and, you know, our wives, boyfriends, husbands, whatever, girlfriends, and just like, oh, this shit happened to me while I was out on a date, or like we broke up. But if you don't get to live life, then you don't come with those stories, you know?
Right. So I want to take it back.
Yeah.
Back to girlfriends.
Wow. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right. Let's go back to girlfriends. Was that your first writing job?
That was my very first writing job.
So Prentice was a writer trainee, eventually turned writer on the show Girlfriends.
Yeah. That was like my going to like Hillman. That was like I didn't go to an HBCU, but my wife did, and that's what she describes as like.
You didn't either.
No.
Yeah.
not even HBCU-ish.
Like it was super white at Hofstra.
Yeah.
Same at USC. So, but it was like there was no agenda. So like everybody was all about supporting each other. And that's the close thing that I think I tried to bring when I was on Insecure. But yeah, Girlfriends was definitely like a safe space to learn, you know, being around. It's the only 2 shows I've ever been on that are like, I'm with my people. Every other show is like, I'm the only one, as a lot of writers are, right? But that show felt like a family, and so many dope people came out of that show who are like shaping television now. So that's like so dope.
And you were under, was it Mara at that time?
Mara Brockett-Keel.
She was from Moesha before too, right?
She was on South Central, Moesha, Jamie Foxx show.
So at any moments, do you ever look at an episode of Insecure of how it came out and be like, I feel elements of even those shows? How much influence did it have when you kind of?
I think 80% of what I've learned as a showrunner is all from Mara.
Wow.
So I don't know if like I could say like this thing. I think the way that she ran the room and tried to get the best out of writers is what I tried to do from that. You know, it's like when you're raised in a household and you're like, that's your first parent, like your mom or your dad. So like, even if you love them, then you kind of are them. And even if you can't stand them, you soak something up, right? And Mara was amazing. So it just was like, oh, this is like, why would I not want to be anything what this is? This is like a great like mom to learn from. You know what I mean? I mean, she might want to say my big sister, but in terms of like my analogy, that's where I learned everything I learned from. So, you know, and obviously I learned from other people too, but that's like, I had no knowledge coming into that show. So that's why I mean, like your parents, like you have no other outside parents. That's the first parent you know. And if they're good, then you try to take the good things from them. And I think that's what I took so many great things. So yeah, almost 80%, if not more of what I do, I learned from Mara for sure.
Can you explain what a showrunner is? Because I honestly didn't know until I knew of you being the showrunner for Insecure. So can you just explain to everyone what a showrunner is?
It's a weird, like nebulous job. I would say the easiest thing I can say about a showrunner is like the president of a company. So it's like you're touching every part of the show, right? So you're hiring the writers, you're hiring the directors, you're hiring other producers, you're hiring your people that make your sets, you're hiring your wardrobe people, you're hiring all your people, all your camera people, you're hiring your editors. So you're hiring the entire department, casting all your actors. Then you're either writing or supervising the writing of all the episodes, all the rewrites, all the table reads, you're on set with the directors, giving a lot of the notes, giving a lot of the input. When you're editing, you're touching all the editing. You're with your music supervisors, you're like, put this song in, put that song in. And then, so everything from like concept of the idea of the season, like everything from like, we don't know what season 4 is going to be, to like, I just watched the finale is what the showrunner touches in some way. And so everything. So that's why I say it's like the president. Like if you're the president of McDonald's, you got to make sure you got a marketing person great, and you're supervising all these departments and making sure that everything is like lined up for success. And so that's what and the good thing is that, you know, if you're smart, and I tried to think I tried to hire, you know, I had amazing writers, we had amazing directors, amazing producers who just gave their time and their talents. And obviously there's Issa, who's like, you know, such a great person, brilliant from the top down. So you know, it's when she's writing on the show and acting in the show, it's like it all filters. Like you have to be on your A game. You know what I mean? Because she's there with you on set and she's there in the writer's room. So, yeah. So that's my partner.
I mean, it feels like almost when Insecure first came out, Issa was unknown to a lot of people, right?
Right. Yeah.
You had already worked on some established shows. So, I mean, how impactful do you think the connection was? You know, do we get an Insecure today without really you and Issa connecting?
I feel like there's no way.
I would say, like, I was telling this to somebody, I was telling this to somebody the other day about that. I was like, the one thing I always try to do was make sure if I was a young Issa, what would I want my showrunner to do, right? And I felt like my best job was to protect her and teach her all that I knew, right? So she can go on and like go do, you know, she's already brilliant, but I was like, take the things that I've learned over the last like 14 years and like learn from me, right? Like there's no point for me to have it all by myself. So the best thing I can say it to is like when Snoop and Dre hooked up, where you're like, Snoop's this new like crazy talent and Dre understands like the business and has been doing it for a while and kind of knows how to put these things together. And when those two people linked up, it was like, oh, special, right? You're just like this guy with these talents and this person with this talents, and they come together just trying to make good music. And I think that's what Issa and I were doing. We were just trying to make a good show. We weren't coming in with like, I wasn't coming in like, you need to learn from me. And she wasn't coming in like, this is my thing. So whatever you say, I ain't really, like we both came in wanting each other to win, but most importantly, wanting the show to win, because you don't get to make an Insecure. And certainly even back then, you didn't get to make an Insecure. That show doesn't happen every day. Like I was in rooms and I was like, so when I read the script, I knew how special. I didn't know what it would be, but I understood this is a special voice that speaks to me specifically. And I know it speaks to other people who are wanting this type of story. So it's too special to like let anything else, and that's just not my personality anyway, but it was too special. It was just like, we got to protect this. We got to get this baby out the South. We got to get this baby to the North because this baby can't grow up to being a slave. It's too special. You know what I mean? So that's what everything. No, you cover it. If I got to die, it's like Clive Owen and Children of Men. If I got to die to get the baby out the thing, that's what it's got to be. So that was always how it felt. It always felt like we were serving a bigger purpose than like a career. We were always in service of like what this meant.
It's because I'll say it again, the monolithic word. Like we gotta have those voices. It's so important for us to have those voices because I mean, I'm an avid TV film watcher. I literally just told Blue like HBO, like that's I love it. I love everything on HBO. And like I'm trying to think about it. I feel like the Blackish show before Insecure was Oz. I feel like
on HBO.
So it was like it's really important. It was really important for Insecure to come about and set a tone the way it did, and I appreciate you guys for that.
I appreciate that, and well, I think definitely we were the first show on their thing that I think with Black people that didn't feel like, because you know they had done The Wire, they had done The Corner. Yeah. They had done Oz. So it was always like us in these sort of like, but we were never getting to do the like Boardwalk Empires, or we were not getting to be the like what they're doing now, which is like Big Little Lies or the Mayor of Easttown. Like we didn't get to do that. It was like, here's how you're gonna be over here. You know what I mean? And so I think that was like nice. It was just, again, we recognized that like, I didn't know what would become of it, but I knew it was too special to like let anything get in the way of like trying to give it our all to make it happen.
And I mean, with that said, I mean, you know, we spoke about your upbringing really through the industry. I got to put you on the spot outside of Issa. Who's there that's been working for you where you're like, this is a talent that's going to be the next Prentice, that's going to really do things?
Oh, so many. I don't even think, I mean, first off, thank you for saying the next Prentice, because I always feel like I'm on my hustle grind. As a Black man, I don't get too comfortable ever. I'm like, yo, we know me tomorrow. So I'm always thinking, I got one foot out the door. I got to be hustling hard all the time. So, but thank you for even suggesting that. But we have so many writers on our staff who are like so dope. Who are, I think, are like we have a writer named Phil Jackson who I'm actually writing. I think that's the other thing that was dope about the room is that all of us are helping each other. We're all partnering up in different projects. So like Issa has her series Rap Shit at HBO Max that like Sarita Singleton, who was started off on the season as my assistant the first season, who's now the show running who worked their way up to be a writer, who's who's a showrunner now. Like that was a big thing that we did was 4 of my former assistants, I helped get writer jobs who are all working writers.
Sundance?
Huh?
Was she at Sundance?
Sarita was at Sundance.
Yeah, I met her at Sundance.
Yeah, you did. Wow. Yeah. So Sarita's running Rap Shit now, which then she hired one of my former assistant and another writer from the show named Fran Richter. There's another writer, Amy Aniobi, who's one of our EPs, who's like has a deal over HBO. Obviously, like Natasha Rothwell, who played Kelly, has a deal at Disney now as a producer writer. The writer I was telling you about, Phil Jackson, who I'm writing my Netflix movie with, who's running a new show at NBC called Grand Crew about 4 friends that hang out at a wine bar. But then he hired one of our writers, Kinsey Young, who also wrote on Black Lady Sketch Show. So like all these writers are bubbling
the new network.
Like at that phase, you know what I mean? And so I think that's the thing that I'm super proud of, is that to like leave the show and leave with more Black writers and talent and producers in the pipeline than when I got there. You know what I mean? They can all have this credit on their resume, which means something, right? Because white people need to validate you in their eyes to be considered in the same. Because when our shows are on our resume, they don't view it as like you're as funny as me.
Wow.
You know what I mean? But when you come with but our show, which is like sad and unfortunate, but that's just sometimes the thinking. And I think that to be able to have our show on your resume that's like nominated for an Emmy, you get to say that, right? It matters. And so to be able to have people to have that writer credit on our show is like super important. So, but yeah, there's a lot of young talent, at least that I work with, and so much more that are like the next 2 years, you'll be having them on this podcast.
Nice.
Hey. Speaking of, okay, so you talked about your upcoming Netflix movie. I want to get into Penny for your thoughts.
Okay.
You already talked about wordplay off of your name.
Yes.
So here we go. Penny for your thoughts. Let us know about the production company.
So the production company, obviously I've been at HBO the last 2 years. We have a movie at Universal that we're getting ready to produce with Spring Hill, like with LeBron. I have the Netflix movie, but on the TV side, we have about 7 or 8 projects in development at HBO. Obviously, Pause with Sam J is one of those shows that we're super excited about. So, now we're getting into docuseries, and we're trying to get more into animation. I'm leaving HBO, but I'll be at a new place that'll be announced in the next couple of weeks. I'll be at a new studio, so I'm excited about what that will be, and the opportunities of what that will yield. Thank you. So, I just wanted to grow the company in new ways, and I felt this move would be to be able to start to get into animation and more other types of shows that will give me the opportunity to do that. So.
So can you tell us about the Netflix movie that you have coming?
Yeah, it's kind of I don't want to give away the plot too much, but it's a Christmas movie that's kind of with our culture, kind of in the tone of Elf. Because I always feel like Black Christmas movies, really until Jingle Jangle.
Yeah, Jingle Jangle.
I was like, white people get to make Elf and the Santa Claus, all these magical Christmas movies and with full of whimsy. And I was like, why didn't no Black whimsy? Black people be whimsical as hell. And so I was like, our Black Christmas movies always around a family drama or some family mess. And I was like, yo, my kids watch Home Alone. We watch,
You're like, that ain't your daddy. And
that's exactly. Or somebody's find that they're getting cheated on and they gotta come. And it's fine. Those movies have a place, but it's that doesn't have to be all of our Christmas stories, right? Where's our Love Actually? Where's our Home Alone? Where's our version of Elf and the Santa Claus? And so, because my kids watch those movies, and I was like, where are we in this space? And so that's why I love Jingle Jangle, because it was we never get to be in these sort of Victorian-ish magical things. And so this movie's kind of set, it's a father-son story kind of set in that tone, in the spirit of Elf. It kind of, I would say that's the closest thing I would say. But it's super funny. We're really close to hopefully them saying, yeah, go here's the money. So we'll see.
Claimed it.
Yeah.
Manifest.
Yeah.
It's happening. Yes.
So I mean, it sounds like you're making an even bigger jump from TV to film, right? Obviously, with these few films that you already have in works that you have out, how is it different for you as a writer and going into movies?
The real different thing about movies is the writer has no power, none. The writer is like replaceable because, you know, like the studio is based on like back in the day, the director's in charge, and they would just have writers on staff. Like you like this writer has a deal at Universal, this writer has a deal there. We don't like you, we're just going to put you on. So that mentality still permeates. It's like if you go to the South, there's no more slavery, but that mentality is still permeates the thinking, right? Whereas on television, because movies are one movie, you can come and go. Well, a television show is like, you're going to be here for multiple years. So the writer has the most power. Like you're the one in charge of like what the stories are. Like directors kind of come and go, but in TV, the writer has. So the toughest thing for me has been balancing when I have the most power, and then to go into a world where I have very little power, and it's a difficult thing to turn off and on. So what I'm trying to figure out, to the best of my thing, is how do I bring this writer thing to this side, and doing that. So I think I want to try to use movies in very specific ways. I don't know if I'll ever do like 25 movies or 20. I don't know if that'll ever be me. I really enjoy television, just because I enjoy the length of you can tell stories and all the ways you can like constantly evolve characters. So like that to me is so much more fun than like, you know, doing this movie and let's done. So I'm less, and now, you know, when I was coming up, no TV people, if you did TV from the movie world, you were like, that's a step down. Every TV person was like trying to get to the movie world. Well, now it's the opposite, because most of the movies they're making are like Spider-Mans and Marvel movies. And yeah, they want to do those movies, but they don't have like, they're not making old movies like Serpico or these sort of like Dog Day Afternoons or Scarfaces, where it's like you can have a character. It's like that's super deep. That all those characters are on television now. That's why you see Al Pacino doing TV and Meryl Streep doing TV and Nicole Kidman basically doing no more movies at all, only doing TV. So you know what I mean? So
how about like the subgenre? Because now I feel like there are a lot of these one season TV shows that are being streamed. So how do you feel about that, like in between?
I like a mini.
I think that's great. I love that. It's like when you used to watch like movies of the week back in the day. You like, oh, I'm gonna watch like 4 movies. This is like a 4 thing. Yes. So I think the fun of that, I think why people like movie actors like doing that is because great, I don't have to commit to a series for like 3-4 years. I can kind of come in like Mahershala, do True Detective, and then bounce out. But I got to like have more. It's almost like when you get to do that, you're almost doing like a play. You're like doing a play but a play that will evolve, right? Because every night when you're doing a play, you're doing the same play. Like it's almost like a movie. You're doing the same movie over and over. You can find things along the way, but you can't grow that character. Where in TV, you could be like, you started over here, and over the course of the season, you got to like play with these other things and have scenes that are in different ways. And so I think limiteds are great ways that you can like, and you know what? Some ideas aren't supposed to last 3 years. Some ideas are like, this is just a 8-episode thing, and that's all it ever needs to be. It's a very like British way of doing television.
I wish more shows knew that.
We won't even name them all, but
we're not going to name names, but I wish certain shows knew that.
Yeah.
But what's next for Prentice Penny in terms of, because we know Insecure final 5 is happening. But what is next in terms of, I mean, we spoke on a few things. What's next for Prentice Penny on the horizon?
I think the next biggest thing is like going into this new deal where I'll be and like branching out the company. Obviously, I still want to make content that's tonally like Insecure, not that, but obviously things that feel elevated in the culture and more of that. But I think more of that in different ways. Like, what is that version of like a Family Guy for our culture? What is that version of, you know, NCIS for our culture, right? Like, what are the things that I can like say, hey, that can feel elevated, but still branch off in the docuseries, branch into limited series, you know, branch into animation, multicam shows, right? So I think that like, you know, children's shows, YA stuff, what is that genre stuff? What does that look like? And so there are a few things that will be coming out in the next month that I'm super excited about. Partnerships, some new companies I've formed with other people, how to service all that. Because I think that's the biggest thing is I sort of view the HBO as like the way Marvel says, oh, this is like phase 1 of Marvel. And I feel like now we're in like phase 2 of what I want the company to be, which is like touching more genres of areas of television and things like that, and other forms of media that I'll be able to do now, but with our culture in mind and how to grow that.
I mean, really, one of the questions I still have for you is, I know content is definitely big for you. That's number one, the actual content, the meat of it all. And you put that definitely higher than even having a name. But are there any particular actors or actresses out there where you're like, I have to do something with them. I have to do a project with them.
Mahershala is somebody I would love to like do something with for sure. I'm just a big fan of his. So I was so like in the culture, like I'm big on like wanting to see people in ways that feel contradictory to what you think. So like I would love to see Mahershala do a comedy. What's Mahershala in a weird like Coen Brothers type comedy, right? To me, I love playing with that, like tone. So like, or taking somebody who's super funny, right? Like what's it like? And I think you see it with certain actors, right? You see like when Mike Epps or Marlon Wayans plays in a drama, right? Yeah. You're like, or when Robin Williams would do that, right? I love like seeing what other people, like I would love to see like Eddie Murphy in a straight hard drama, like in a real, like a real dark something. Cause I just feel like that's becomes really interesting. People go sink or swim. What is that? You know what I mean? And so I'm just big on putting people, I love putting people that you don't think are going to be the thing into the thing that you're contrary to. Like Jeffrey Wright is somebody I love, but I want to see Jeffrey Wright in a comedy. What's Jeffrey Wright in a comedy, right? And I think comedy is so loose now. I think that's the fun of it, right? Which is like, because they're so good actors, it's just like finding the comedy that fits them as a suit. Right. It doesn't mean they're doing Friday, but they could do something that's like kind of weird. It's like weird and quirky. It's like when you saw Denzel be like Roman J. Israel, and you're like, what the hell?
Like that was
this is, you know what I'm saying? But it's like a choice. It's like interesting. You know what I mean? Like the movie may not be that good, but he was so good he got nominated for an Oscar. You know what I mean? Because the character is interesting. So I think that's the stuff I'm more interested in, is like taking things that you think are going to be one way, and then like, what is it like if you slide them into something that feels maybe a little contrary or a little bit different than what you would expect them in.
I'm putting Jeffrey Wright into the universe. I think I want to see him in a comedy.
Yeah.
When you said Friday, I was just like, wait a minute. I could see that.
I'm like, I could easily see Jeffrey Wright in something that like Oh Brother, like why couldn't he do what George Clooney did in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
He could though, because
or be what John Turturro was. 100%.
Cadillac Records, like he has the chops to do it.
Yeah, it's like people like that are just too talented to. He's like, you just have to find the way it fits their suit, not just like putting them in sort of again, what you assume is the comedy, but putting them in something else that feels right for them.
I even think about Will Smith just popping out in the first movie that
absolutely.
Left field.
I mean, it's like he's done both. So I think guys like Robin Williams have done both. Like I think like the precedent obviously is there. Actors do that all the time. So I think it's like Robert De Niro. He can be funny and Meet Their Parents. He can be dramatic, in The Godfather. You know what I mean? Or Casino or Goodfellas. So it's like that's the thing I'm the most excited by, is putting people in things that you just go like, why are they in that?
Yeah, let's show the range. So do you have any words of advice for upcoming writers, showrunners, directors?
Wow, that's so I think the best advice I would give is like just keep going, honestly. And I know it seems like super pat and super like easy and cheesy, but it's real. Like I didn't get my first job for 9 years after I graduated. So there's lots of times along the road that you're like gonna want to quit, or it looks like it's not gonna happen. But I think it sifts the wheat in a way that goes like, a lot of people say they want to do stuff, and I think that like you always need to be acting as if. And that was the biggest change I think I learned. Even though when I wasn't writing, I treated my day like I was writing, like I was a professional. So even though I was like a substitute teacher and I did this, I got up every morning and I wrote before I left. And I got up every day. Like a lot of times before that, I would like wake up whenever, because I didn't have kids and whatever yet. So I could wake up at like noon or 12 and whatever, and then like kind of maybe start writing by 2. I just didn't respect time, right? And I feel like that's one thing I try to always do, is that, we all have different like gifts and abilities, right? We all like, I can't control that. Like I wasn't born 6'6" with a jump shot, right? I can't control, I don't sing or rap like Jay-Z or Beyonce. I can't control, no matter what I do, I will never be able to do those things. I'll never be Kobe or Shaq. I will never have that hype. But what we all have is 24 hours in our day. Mm-hmm. And it's how do you spend those 24 hours that will be like, I can guarantee nobody will outwork me. I may not have the talents of Stephen King or Spike or whomever, but I got 24 hours in a day, and I best believe I'm going to use those hours. And I think that's the biggest thing is people need to respect time because it's the only thing you can't buy. It's the only thing you can't get back. And so you got to respect it and use it wisely.
Well, damn. You don't got to tell me but once. All right. Write that down.
Reassess your 24 hours.
Right.
But no, Prentice, it's been dope having you on. Man. Thank you for your insight. You're definitely welcome back anytime because we know you got so much going on about to happen, and we'd love to hear even more.
Absolutely.
Sounds good. So good to see you again, Olivia, for sure.
Yes, good seeing you too.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Take care.
All right, Prentice. Peace.
Bye-bye.
Yo, Prentice was dope.
Yeah.
Like, he was insightful.
And you can tell, and I love when you can tell and they don't hide how passionate they are about what they do. And you can tell Prentice is one of those people, very, very passionate about TV and film, just not only as somebody who works behind the scenes, but also just a fan.
Yes.
All the references he pulls, like you can tell he's a fan.
He said Spike, he loves some Spike.
Of some Spike Lee.
But yo, the dopest thing about it all was the fact that he's not trying to hide his wisdom.
Right.
Because I think we see that too often in many spaces where if someone has earned the right to have all this knowledge, they kind of hold it up only for me.
Yeah.
But he's sharing it.
But he understands that. I feel if you look at his tweets,
yeah,
he fully understands that we as Black people, we have the shitty end of the stick a lot of these times, like especially in these spaces where, you know, they want our stories. They want to see us. We are their entertainment, but in terms of having the control and the power,
not there.
It's not really there. So he's really, really trying to make sure. Like I said, I met him at Sundance doing a workshop where the 3-4 of us sitting at a table with him, and he just asked away. That's the time he's on.
Wow.
So yeah.
And it's for that shift. I mean, it's kind of crazy to think that Insecure was only the 5th Emmy nominated show from really Black production and everything else around it, like in history.
He knows how important it is for us to not only have our stories, but to be behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Telling them.
And the amount of people that are flying out of the whole Insecure camp and doing their thing is crazy.
It's important. When I met his assistant, she was his assistant.
And now
she's like, she was now getting into the writers. I had a conversation. She was getting into the writers' rooms, kind of writing here and there. And now look.
That's where you get the consistent workshop.
Yeah, she's at the consistent workshop. I'm trying to get to them. Dude, let me get to a little consistent workshop.
What was that? Let me write my notes on the side and write my script. Notes on the side, script.
But that's
the beauty of it.
That's the beauty of it.
Each one teach one.
Each one teach one. You have to share the knowledge.
Yeah. So I mean, how are you inspired? Because I want to know, have you been writing scripts? What you got going on? We know you did a book already, but
I'm writing. I've always loved writing. I've always loved TV. I've always loved, like, just, you know, my imagination is crazy. So I've always enjoyed like just storytelling.
Okay.
So I'm in the lab and he kind of put a little fire under my ass when he said, you got 24 hours. Everybody got the same 24 hours. I'm like, I heard you.
Yo, so I think I'm not necessarily going to go write a movie, right? But I think I definitely want to get into the book thing. Because even when we think about last season with Nikita, and she wrote like a book in like 2 months.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just like, yo, there's so many different options. And when we got it all up here, you might as well put it and share it. And it's about finding the teams to put it in the right places.
Right. And we spoke on that too. Having different stories from the Black experience. There's so many stories that we have that isn't just about living in the hood.
Yes.
And your daddy wasn't around playing basketball.
Things we like, but
mama, I want to sing. Like, we have so many other stories other than that. So why not put it in a book?
Like a family doing family stuff too.
Right.
And it's okay.
And that's fine, because that's a story in itself.
But you know what's funny? Like, when you think about it that way, it's like, I guess the truth is there are stories like that. There are movies that are more regular, but for whatever reason, right, the machine didn't push that image of us out there. And
because the machine likes our tragedies so much.
And folks like Prentice are in these spaces where they're changing that.
Right.
And I think that is gonna form so much more for the future. And that's the dopeness. And we'll see where he goes on this new journey and this new company he rolls with.
I'm excited to see where he goes next.
Yeah, I heard a lot of father-son stories and animations.
I have my guesses.
Yeah. I
where
think
he's going.
We might have to take side bets off here.
Okay.
But we'll see.
Yes.
And we're looking forward to it. But Prentice, if you actually listen to this episode, we really appreciated your insight. And for everyone else that's out there listening, I mean, take the keys, take the gems, because they're here every time.
Every single episode.
If you listen to literally every episode, people are dropping gems in different spaces. And what I love about it is you don't necessarily have to be a writer, or you don't want to be a showrunner to take some of these gems and apply them.
To
whatever you got, whatever your passion is, apply it, because these are the people that are out here doing their things.
Mm-hmm.
They're the trailblazers, and you got to learn from them.
Absolutely. 9 years before.
Nothing. Just no work. He was a substitute teacher. And then boom, girlfriends.
Right.
Yeah. Crazy.
It's wasting opportunity for anybody.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That's it.
Blue Dope.
Blue Dope. Yeah.
We out.
Peace.